Hello there, today I am going to answer your questions. I went onto Instagram and asked my audience to ask me anything about travel and remote working, and those are the questions that we're going to focus on today. If you do not follow me on Instagram, I really recommend that you do, because you get to see behind the scenes on what life is like as a remote worker and long-term traveller. I create stories, videos, I upload photos. Like many of you won't realise that I went to EPO last weekend, and I'm actually currently working on an edit for a video which is going to be up later this week. So yes, go and follow me on Instagram with behind the scenes footage. The first question is by TJKW92, and she asks, what is the biggest culture shock that you have experienced? Great question. I would have to say going to Thailand for the first time. It was the first country that I visited after quitting my job to travel and become a remote worker. And going there and just the hustle and bustle, bikes everywhere, the noises, the smells, the culture, and just, people trying to scam you all the time, and the temples. I would say that that was probably the biggest culture shock. Watery Island asks me, what is the best place that I've been to in Malaysia? That is a really tough question. I would have to say that I thoroughly enjoyed my trip up to Ipoh, and the Cameron Highlands was absolutely breathtaking, really was beautiful. But I've also enjoyed the kind of heritage and history of Georgetown in Penang, and the food there is incredible. I love the modernness of Kuala Lumpur. So as you can see, I can't really pick anywhere out, but I love scenery, I love landscape, so I would have to say so far it's definitely the Cameron Islands is the highlight of my trip to Malaysia so far. Stenin Lee asks, if you won the lottery, where would you travel to? It would have to be New Zealand. I would love to spend 3 months. I was there for 6 weeks in 2015 and I absolutely loved it, but I only really got to see the north part of the country, and I want to spend more time in the south. I would also do the Trans-Siberian Express, travelling from St. Petersburg in Russia by train all the way to Beijing in China. I'd also love to do the Rockies and explore Canada, Lake Louise, that kind of part of the country. So yeah, lots of places. To be honest, those are high on my bucket list, and I will be ticking one of those off at least next year. Clarence Ruger asks a really good question, and that is, does my work fund my travels, and if not, how do I fund it? Most definitely the work that I do as a contractor and freelancer funds all of my travels. I had some savings when I started this journey, when I quit my job, but that has been topped up by the work that I've done, the contracting, and I'm very smart about this. What I do is spend 6 months of the year in countries where the cost of living is cheaper than the UK, and that allows me to save more money. Then the rest of the year I can visit cities and countries which are more expensive, like Japan, New Zealand, Australia, the USA. So that's how I do it. I save up a big chunk of money every month. I live very frugally, to be completely honest. I don't go out and spend a fortune on gadgets. I don't spend a fortune on food and drink. I live very frugally, and I save as much money as I can, because for me, that's a comfort blanket. If my contracting work was to disappear or my freelancing was to dry up, at least I would have enough money in my account to last for a year without having to worry about finding a job. And that just makes me sleep better at night and just gives me the confidence to continue living this lifestyle. Tokyo Colin asks, have I ever been to Japan? I have. Last year I spent a month in Tokyo, and I was in Shinjuku. That's where I lived, in my apartment, and I loved it. I want to go back so much. I didn't create as many videos as I would have liked. Perfectionism definitely caught up with me on that trip. And I did create some videos. I loved the parks there, I loved the food, the people were so friendly, and it was just a really different experience from anywhere else that I've travelled to in the world. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I will be going back to Japan in October, so keep a lookout for announcements on that. Vera Goy28 asks, what is your job? And it's an interesting question because I think a lot of people assume that I'm on this big holiday traveling around the world and that I'm rich and therefore to travel. But I actually work, I would say, between 8 and 10 hours a day. I'm a contractor, I'm a freelancer, I work a lot of hours in between all of the exploring and the traveling that I do. So the work that I tend to do the most is software testing, quality assurance. So apps and websites, I test them to make sure there's no bugs or any issues with them, any improvements that can be made. That's what I do for a living. That's how I'm able to afford to travel. So yes, that is my job. George Seafort, and I'm sorry George if I've just butchered your name there, but he asks a very good question. How do I deal with mail when I'm traveling long term and jumping around to different accommodation? Well, most of my bills, in fact all of my bills, are online. So banking I do online, tax I do online, everything is online. So I get emails when I've got bills to pay, that kind of thing. But some mail does go to my parents' address, and when I go back home, 2 or 3 times a year, I will collect all of that mail and read through it. If there's anything that looks urgent, my parents will open up the mail and send me a photo on WhatsApp, and then I can deal with it accordingly. Like if I've got a hospital appointment and they've given me a date when I'm not in the country, I can ring them up and reschedule it. So that's how I deal with my mail. But keeping everything online is really, really important, so you can manage everything as you are traveling. Clarence Ruger asks a really good question, and that is, how do I integrate work and travel so well? I'm glad somebody's noticed that, because it's so vital that you have routine in your life. And as somebody who worked 9 to 5 in an office, I hated routine, hated it. I fought against it any way that I could. I hated routine, but as a remote worker, you have to have routine in your life. And what you need to do is to have a time of the day that you focus on work and only work. I'm really lucky that I mainly work with American companies, so the time difference allows me to work in the evening, which is my preferred time of the day. I find I'm more productive in the evening because during the day I want to do my own thing. I want to go out and explore. I want to work on my passion projects like YouTube. I want to go and read in a cafe, a coffee shop. I want to chill out in my apartment. And the evening, I know that is the time to work. That is where I get my head down, get my 8-10 hours of work done, and that really works for me. It doesn't always work for everybody, but routine, so important. Alphabet Junkie is curious if I see an end in sight for my full-time travels. And that is a good question. It's something that I've been thinking about a little bit myself recently. And I'm 45 years old, and I've got like a 5-year plan. And for the next 5 years, I really see that being about visiting more countries and ticking more places off of my bucket list and just focusing on seeing as much of the world as I can for the next 5 years. I do feel that when I am 50 years old, I will slow my travels down and I will start to spend 3 months in cities, in places that I really like to live in, like Kuala Lumpur, like Prague. And I want to kind of create a list of maybe 5 or 6 places that I feel really at home in and spend my time visiting those places for 3 months and then moving on to somewhere else. That's where I think I will get to by the time I'm 50. TJKW92 asks, what are my thoughts on the differences between Asia and Europe? Well, I have to say that Asia, especially Southeast Asia, well, all of Asia, has got so much interesting stuff to see and explore. You know, just alone the streets are full of vibrance and energy and just so much to look at. Where in Europe, the streets are quite boring and bland. And when you visit various other cities, they start to look the same. They've got town squares, similar types of architecture, a similar history around war, and food is pretty much the same. And Europe, I'll be honest, is kind of boring me. I want to find more unusual places in Europe. I really want to go to Ukraine and Azerbaijan, which I know is kind of more Asia, you could say, than Europe. But I just want to visit more places in Europe which are a little bit more unique and different. I think that's my focus for the future. And yeah, a lot of Europe starts to look the same, where Asia is just crazy. There's just so much going on, so much to see. Dominic Peters asks, do I ever feel lonely when I'm traveling around the world alone? I would have to say no to that, and I think there's a number of reasons for it. Firstly, I am an introvert, and not many people believe me when I say that, but I really am. I do like my own company, and I struggle to get the confidence to talk to people and meet people. It's something that I'm really trying to improve on, to improve my social skills. But because I like my own company, I'm quite happy to be alone. You know, I do meet people on my travels, especially on this trip. I've met more people on this trip that watch my videos and subscribe to my videos than I've ever done in the 3.5 years of traveling. So it's something that I'm definitely trying to improve on. But that means I'm not lonely because I like my own company. Also, I'm just so mega busy. You know, I work 8 to 10 hours a day. I'm out exploring, I'm creating videos, I'm working on my own little passion projects, which I'm hoping are going to bring in some passive income in the future. And I'm just so busy, I really am. I do have time to relax, and today is one of those days, which is why I'm filming in my apartment. But no, I don't feel lonely. I think what's also important is that you try and keep in touch with family and friends. So I use Skype and WhatsApp and Facebook just to keep in touch with people back home. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video today. I love answering your questions. So if you've got any other questions about remote working or travel, please do leave them down in the comments section and I will jump in and answer them as I always do. I love the engagement. It's what keeps me motivated to create videos. It feels like, you know, I've got people following me on my travels and my journey. So yes, please do leave some comments. Also click on that announcement button. No, it's called a notification bell thing, just in case you don't get a notification when I upload. And if you're new to the channel, hit on that subscribe button because the travel doesn't stop here. Talk to you soon. See you tomorrow with a new video from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia.